In this video, you're going to learn how to graph a linear inequality. So there are 3 steps to doing this. First things is you want to get your inequality into slope-intercept form. So we'll use our inverse operations to rewrite an equation if needed. Second, here's how you're going to graph the line. You'll graph it as normal, except if you see a less than or greater than sign, you're going to use a dotted line. If you see a less than or equal to, or a greater than or equal to, you're going to use a solid line. Okay, so that's the only difference here in graphing that line. Now there's one additional step that we do with inequalities, and we shade the half plane. We shade the part that we want to tell us what part of our inequality is true, or what part of our line is true. So we'll shade the half plane. If it's a greater than or equal to sign, we'll shade above that line. And if it's a less than or equal to sign, we'll shade below that line. All right, so let's practice. First, I want to graph right here. I want to graph negative 2x plus 5y is greater than or equal to negative 10. So let's put that in the slope-intercept form first. We know we want to isolate y. So I'll start by adding 2x to both sides. That gives me 5y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 10. And then, of course, I want to go through and divide everything through by 5 to get rid of the 5 by the y. So that gives me a brand new equation of y is greater than or equal to 2/5 x minus 2. So a couple of things I want to note. I have a greater than or equal to sign. That means that 2 things. I'm going to graph a solid line, and I'm going to shade above the line. Okay, so a really good strategy here is to write that down before you go to graph it so that you know and kind of can double check what you're going to do here. So let's graph that line. All right, so I start at my y-intercept of negative 2, and the slope of 2/5 means to go up 2 over 5. And because I want to have a third point, I'll go down 2 over 5. Great. Solid line. And I'm going to shade above that line. That means that all these points that I shaded and that are on this line are solutions to this inequality. Let's go to the one right below it. Graph x minus y is greater than 6. Okay, so as usual, we want to write this in y equals mx plus b form, or y is greater than mx plus b form. So we'll subtract x on both sides. Giving us negative y is greater than negative x plus 6. And now, of course, we want to flip the signs because y is negative. Notice I didn't write an inequality sign here. So I want you to remember that when we multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative 1, which is essentially what we're doing when we flip the signs, we have to flip that inequality sign too. So now it's going to become a less than sign. So let's make a note of how we're going to graph this. So it's a less than sign, which means 2 things. It's going to be a dotted line, and we're going to shade below the line. So let's graph y, the boundary line, y equals x minus 6. Okay, so start at negative 6, and a slope of 1 here, so 1 over 1. Okay, there's a bunch of points, and we're going to graph this with a dotted line because it's a less than sign. And what I mean by this is that anything that is on that dotted line is not a solution. That's why we do it as a dotted line and not a solid line. And we want to shade below But anything below that solid line is going to be a solution to that inequality. Great. Let's jump up here and let's do negative 1/2 x plus 2y is less than or equal to 6. Actually, I'm going to see if you can do that one on your own. See if you can, I'll help you put it into y equals mx plus b form, but I want you to graph that one on your own. So let's go ahead and get rid of y, or not get rid of y, get rid of what's around y, because we want to isolate y. So I'll add 1/2 x to both sides, giving me 2y is less than or equal to 1/2 x plus 6. And then we're going to divide everything through by 2. So y is less than or equal to 1/2 divided by 2, or half of a half, essentially, as a quarter. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, so think about what type of line we're going to graph. It's a less than or equal to sign, which means it's going to be solid, and we're going to graph below. You graph that inequality on your own, this one right here, and let's see what you come up with. All right, let's jump down to our last one. 4x minus 2y is less than 12. Again, let's write it in y equals mx plus b form. So let's see what you got. And we divide both sides by -2, giving us y is greater than 2x minus 6. Did you remember to flip the sign? Remember, if we multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. Okay, so let's think about what we're going to do. How are we going to graph this? Hopefully, you said that it's going to be a dotted line, and we're going to shade above the line. Let's see what you can come up with. So I'm going to check to see how you graphed this one up here. The negative 1/2 x plus 2y is less than or equal to 6. And the 4x minus 2y is less than 12. I'm going to check to see how you did those in class. I want you to try them based on the equations we are able to rewrite, and we will go over them in class.